You're watching Unrendered on IKTV. I'm Tony Regisford, and my guest is Mr. Stephen Joachim. You can follow us on Twitter at iConcepts. We're here into our last segment on this edition of the program. Stephen, we went out with sports, and I was giving you an opening there to talk about the wonderful things that your daughter did and represented the country very well.
It's not. First of all, it's not my daughter. It's a team, and as I like to say, we're developing. 2 years ago, we went to Antigua for the OECS Championship, and my son won a medal, and my daughter won a medal, and that was about it. 2 years later, we are now, we had, I think, 5 or 6 people winning individual medals.
Right.
And we had outstanding performances from Nicholas Sylvester, who broke a OECS record.
I'm seeing a story that says
Shane
you amassed 35 medals?
Yeah, we did, but we still finished 4th overall. Huh?
Yeah, that's
but you have to understand the way the
Yeah.
sport works, because there's a team of 35 people or 32 people or whatever, and therefore you have to have a lot of people all the way through. We're not going to be there for 6 or 7 years before we could even challenge for third place. Huh? But we have outstanding individuals who can compete anywhere. Fortunately, my daughter, I like to brag, of course, she broke the OECS record. But the record she broke, even more impressively, was the only OECS person who was ever qualified in swimming for the Olympic Games. She broke her record by over 2 seconds. So if she keeps at it, we'll be great. But I mean, Shane Cadogan was fantastic. Nicholas was terrific, as usual. And we're getting there. The OECS sent out a press release themselves, which was terrific and explained the development of the sport over the years. And a friend of mine, Keith Joseph, once said, Stephen, Vincentians only appreciate one thing, and that's medals and winning. So find a way to win. So obviously, to get the publicity and to get the money that you need to derive a sport, you need to get people who win. So, and our goal is to gradually increase. We now have 4 or 5 excellent swimmers. Hopefully in 3 or 4 years, we'll have 8 or 9 swimmers. But that's not like the other countries who've been at it for a long time.
How can you take that development in the swimming arena and maybe transfer that to the other sectors of sport?
I'm on the National Olympic Committee, and I understand the difficulty some of these sports have. But I'll give an example of some of the issues we run into. In swimming, we are the only sport that is totally dependent upon electricity. If we don't have any electricity to run our pump, our pool is closed, and we don't have a sport anymore. So I said, Jesus, man, this is tough. Let's write to Vinlec to ask them for some support. So I write to Fondley. I need help, and here is why. I spell it out clearly. He writes back, Vinlec doesn't do this. So I said, come on, what are we doing here? You want to kill a sport, Fondley Myers and Vinlec, because you refuse to give me $1,200 a month in electricity to keep my sport afloat. So in 6 or 8 months' time, when we can no longer keep the pool at Shrewsbury House, I'm going to look at Fondley, and when I see him, I'll tell him this to his face. And say, why are you killing my sport, Fondley Myers? Why are you doing this, Vinlec? He made a decision, because I spoke to people on the board and never went to the board. This is a unique situation. So this is a situation where this track and field, football, cricket, none of them are dependent upon electricity as a requirement.
But he may think he's opening the floodgates if he did that.
How is he opening the floodgates? I am dependent. There's no other sport that's physically dependent upon electricity. So explain to me how it opens the floodgates. That's like my friend at the NSC. That's like my friend. No, you can play basketball in the daylight. And what is wrong, by the way, with Vinlec turning on, and I think all sports fields, at least one in every constituency or in every major village, should be lit between 5:30 and 8 o'clock at night.
Since you mentioned that, because at the NSC,
take it off, Tony.
I think we have overall, and I don't want to take you off sport, but I think overall we have a problem of the cost of electricity as an impediment to a lot of things.
Yeah, because we don't understand.
Business not excluded.
Yeah, but let's talk about sport for a minute. And the reason I want to bring it back to sport is because at the meeting we had earlier on with the National Sports Council, and Seth Mackey and so on was there, and the Sports Council complained that they couldn't afford to pay the electricity bills. And I looked at Seth and I said, good, there's a government man there. And they said, they couldn't afford it. I said, so we could afford the cost of obesity. We could afford the cost of diabetes. We could afford the cost of crime. Because these are the costs, guys. These are the alternatives. So let us be sensible here.
I'm agreeing.
And let us think. And I will argue with anybody.
Thank you. What we are doing now,
Tony, what we are doing now is stupidity. At some point, somebody has to get off their behind and say, we need to treat sports seriously. My daughter is presently at school in Canada. Every day she has to pick what's called a co-curricular activity, basically a sport. It is part of the curriculum.
I couldn't
What are we
agree with
doing
you
here?
more.
What
I
are we
couldn't
doing here
agree with you
instead?
more. I
We're not.
couldn't agree with you
We're
more.
not.
I think
Everything
it
here is
adds-
academics. Like they don't understand
I
what the
couldn't agree
role
with
of
you more.
sports
It
is.
makes-
We have a crime situation. The reason
Yes.
we have a crime, one of the reasons we have a crime situation is because the kids can't go and play football after 6 o'clock because the fields are in darkness.
I agree with that.
Let the kids go and run.
I
Let them
agree-
get tired.
I
Let them
agree
go
there
home and
needs to
sleep
be-
and eat.
There
Sorry.
needs to be a focus and the will and all
Yes,
that.
correct.
And I'm sure
Correct.
everybody identifies. If the political directors, I'm sure they identify.
So why aren't they
this,
doing
you know.
anything about it?
But there needs to be
Because
that,
because
there
what's
needs to be
happening,
that
Tony,
focus.
is they're putting themselves onto little buckets. So we have INLEC over here, we have the Sports Council over here, we have the Ministry of Education over here, we have a Ministry of Education and we have a Ministry of Sports. Can you tell me why? Who exactly plays sports? When last I checked, it was mainly young people. So what stupidity are we doing? Why do we not have the Ministry of Sports and Education together in one
It
ministry?
used to be that way, actually.
Thank you. So whose brainstorm was it to separate them? Because that person, in my view, is an idiot. Whoever made that decision. They weren't thinking.
I really can't remember
I don't know
when
what it
that
was
made,
either, but I mean,
it's-
Jesus,
it's
why not reverse
historic,
it, guys?
yes.
Why don't we do what is right now for our young people? Because what we're doing now is wrong. And we claim we love our young people, but guys, we need to do better. And, you know, I'm pleading with the powers that be. I've had the same conversation with Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, with Seth Mackey. Guys, we need to do better, please. And if I have to go on every radio station, every TV station to keep slamming this point,
your
Tony.
passion here.
No, but this is what we are hurting our young people, Tony.
Yes, I can sense your passion. And again, you've thrown out something that's very fruitful for discussion, because when you talk about the fact of obesity and these non-communicable diseases that a healthy lifestyle can prevent, of which sport is a very important
critical
part. There's the other part about that, and it's
Absolutely.
why are we encouraging all these sugary drinks?
Well,
you know?
I told some politicians we should quadruple the price of sugar.
Yeah.
They said the poor people would kill me. I said, no, you are killing the poor people now
Yeah,
by
so-
allowing
so,
them with,
you know,
with cheap sugar.
Sooner or later, we're going to make that
We'll
shift.
get there.
We're going to
We'll
make
get
that
there.
paradigm shift. Lime and flow,
Yes, yes, yes.
good or bad?
An interesting point, Tony, but one topic just before we get to lime and flow. It's a difficult one because all over the world, the telecommunications business is changing and changing dramatically. I think I read an article this morning where they said in 2007, this gentleman came up with the idea of an iPhone, and that changed everything. We no longer had telecom companies. We now had everything.
So here we come.
What we need to understand
We're looking
here,
at a duopoly situation about to emerge here. Is it
correct? Yeah, let's face it here. I find it ironic that Digicel are the ones starting to complain. Because, I mean, Digicel have been quietly going around buying up cable systems all over the Caribbean. Digicel owns fiber under the sea. So there is no lack of competition here, guys. Basically, all that has happened is Lime has purchased Carib Cable, as far as St. Vincent is concerned. But we haven't limited the competition here any more than we had before because, you know, the original fiber, as I understand it, under the sea, and the experts can correct me, was originally basically owned by Lime. Lime several years ago sold it to Columbus, and now they're buying it back. Right? So, I mean, guys, the competition's still there, and we have regulators. Regulators are supposed to be able to...
This is what's important here. It's important here now that the regulators have teeth and muscle.
Correct. And they do.
This is what's very important.
And they do. The question, we must also make sure that they have competence to understand if somebody is doing any transfer pricing mechanisms to suck all the money overseas instead and charging artificial prices to the
and then we
local
have
company.
to have fair prices.
It must be fair prices. It must be fair
particular, because this is the gateway to...
Yeah, but I just find it ironic that Digicel wants to complain when Digicel are not exactly one of the good boys around here. You know, I don't see Digicel fighting for continually lowered rates either. They're all in this. They've all made a tremendous amount of money, both Lime, Cable and Wireless, Digicel, through mobile in this part of the world, and in my view, through charging prices that are way too high to more than recover the size of their investment. And when you look at all the cable systems and TVs that all of them are buying up, you can see why. So Digicel is just afraid that Cable and Wireless and Lime and Flow coming together will be serious competition for them. And they don't want the competition.
But we really, Stephen, we really have to ensure that bandwidth in particular, that's a pet subject for me. We have to make sure.
Without that, we're not going anywhere. Because you talked earlier about tourism. I mean, one of the things that we are looking at in the Grenadines is internet access. Because believe it or not, that in the high-end market, that differentiates whether people come to your place or not.
Bandwidth differentiates a lot of stuff.
We no longer have a situation where people go on vacation. you know, and
it's an old model.
It's an old model. You come, you're walking with your computer, and you do work. I work 365 days a year.
And your computer now is actually your smartphone,
correct?
Literally, or a tablet.
Correct.
Yes.
So that is absolutely correct. But to think that we will oppose this merger because it's monopoly situation, that's not a viable excuse.
I don't think one can oppose it for opposing's sake, but I think the whole question of the regulations
is critical.
It's critical.
Absolutely.
It's critical so that the consumer does not get screwed.
But right now, let's face it, Columbus and Lyme, as far as St. Vincent is concerned, are not exactly competing. And by the way, you do look at certain practices by Columbus who want to be Mr. Fair and whatever. And when you make comments publicly about certain employees who've been working for us for the past 4 months, you know, quietly with clients, and that same employee was working for Lyme before, you do wonder about the morality and the ethics of the organization that they're running.
But Stephen,
no, but that's my point. Don't pretend to be this better.
Yeah.
Don't pretend to be this better than thou person when you are just the same as all the others, if not worse.
Big businesses, if you're with them, you're with them. And
Correct.
if you move to the next thing, then you are welcome the next side.
And Columbus have not exactly been brilliant in providing excellent customer service. They've gotten off to a rough start. I think they are doing better, and I think they will get better as they go along.
Well, in fairness, I think they got a baptism of fire. And, I feel that they've made some
progress. I agree.
And,
I think they're heading in the right direction. But the fact that I mean, Digicel owns cable systems all over the Caribbean. So what if if Lyme now owns a cable system in St. Vincent and the Grenadines?
Let's push on here.
Yes.
I'm ticking off these points as we have. We had jotted down here, and I don't know if we're going to have much time to spend on it. St. Kitts and now Guyana. And that situation.
I am concerned about democracy in this part of the world, you know, because it seems to me like a lot of people only like democracy when they can win. And when in Guyana, the parliament is prorogued because the opposition wants to bring a no confidence motion, you get very... And since you mentioned about the developments of the Caribbean and the the CCG early on, and our judicial system being regional.
Right.
Well, we have a thing called the OAS, right? Organization of American States, which is largely regional too, wouldn't you say, Tony?
Well,
but guess what? This wonderful entity of an Organization of American States manages to condemn Guyana for what they're doing here, proroguing Parliament and basically, you know, being offensive to democracy. How come they don't condemn St. Kitts and Nevis? Is that being an offense to democracy?
Maybe they're not seeing it as similar.
I am sure they don't, but I see it as similar. Many of us out there say, well, what's the difference? And I know the lawyers will argue their technicalities, but at the end of the day, guys, it's a democracy. If people want to hold a no confidence motion against you, you're supposed to allow
should
them
be there.
to. It should be allowed to flow. You should not be interfering with that
Incidentally, what
mechanism.
has happened in St. Kitts cannot happen in St. Vincent because of the Constitution.
I'm very happy to hear that. So what's wrong with my colonial Constitution?
Oh, Stephen, come on. Let's not go there. I don't think people understand your sarcasm. Listen, political readiness of the parties. This is, we're gonna take this out now. We're in clearly a season, election season.
Silly season.
And it's going to get more intense as we go along. And where's the readiness of the two major parties?
Well, clearly the NDP will argue that they're far more ready. They have all their candidates. They are ready to go. They keep saying to ring the bell. And I told a friend of mine the other day, if you want to put pressure on and you want to ring the bell, just stay out of Parliament 3 or 4 times in a row, because then you'll have 7 by-elections. That should do the trick quite easily, you know, if you really feel that strongly about it. But of course, that's not going to happen. That's not likely to happen, I shouldn't say. But it is interesting. So the NDP claims that they are ready to go, and they want. But if they really want to put pressure on, then maybe that's what they should do. The ULP apparently are without 4 or 5 candidates, but the Prime Minister, I believe, has announced that those will all be done in early December. And then we are ready for the official run-in for the last year and 3 months if it runs all the way to March 2016. So going to be interesting. I do think there's some easy things that can be done. My private passion right now, I don't know the gentleman who owns the rum shop at the girls' high school on Maurice Road, because I think it is disgraceful. And I like to say, you know, Marcus de Freitas and myself and so on are family members through one way or the other. And in my view, the ULP were right when they said you cannot have a concrete place next to girls' high school. Cement dust and so on, and they were right. Never mind the argument about the payment of the price. It's a different issue. But the ULP were right there. And then a few years later, the ULP are now in power, and they allow a rum shop to be put next to girls' high school, where there is allegedly police there regularly. There's weed smoking apparently going on. There's alcohol being served. Why is that allowed, ULP? Why is that allowed? Why is that not shut down, so? You're serious about education. How can you be serious about education when you allow a rum shop to exist next to girls' high school in one of our most populated areas for education? It's a pet peeve of mine. There's right and there is wrong. You cannot do that. What are you doing to our young people? You love education, you love young people, shut down the rum shop. Why is it still there after all these years? And it's getting worse, not better. This is not a good sign. What are we encouraging? What are we telling our young people? Oh, you'll say, oh, but they can't drink before a certain hour. Why is a rum shop in that location? It should not be there.
It shouldn't be there, period.
The cement thing
regardless if they're not selling alcohol during school hours.
The cement storage thing should not have been there. A rum shop should not be there. And they should shut it down. And let us see if they are serious about education and young people in this country, because that is what they should do.
So you're saying that's a low-hanging fruit?
That's a low-hanging fruit for them to show that they are serious. At some point, you have to admit, guys, we made a mistake here. We shouldn't have allowed a rum shop. It's out of control, and it needs to be shut down. Regardless of it's being held by a ULP fanatical supporter or not, it is wrong. How would you like your children to be going there every day and seeing what goes on there? Drive past it, Tony, every day and see what is going on there. This is not a personal issue about somebody making a living.
No, I can sense
you can't be doing this to our young people. You know, you can't be doing this. So as far as readiness for elections, it seems to me like everybody's ready to go. I think 98% of the people, maybe 99, have already decided how we are voting.
If the NDP won the elections,
yes,
and I'm going to ask the question in the other direction as well. Or let me ask it now. If the NDP won or if the ULP won, what do you think would have been the determining factors both ways?
I think that
one in the NDP becoming successful or being the ULP retaining
in my view, there is only one factor in this election that matters. And the factor is a gentleman named Ralph Gonsalves. In my view, the people who are voting, do you want Ralph or do you not want Ralph? Do you want to get rid of him? So James Mitchell once told me that there's only one thing sure in politics, Stephen. If you stick around long enough, the people will want to get rid of you no matter what you do.
Right.
So this is the issue, is Ralph Gonsalves will need to be able to persuade people that he is the best person to lead them, as opposed to Arnim Eustace. And Arnim Eustace will have to say, no, I'm the better person, because at the end of the day, political parties, this is not about teams. It's a fantasy world that we have parties and there's democracy and all of that within the parties. At the end of the day, you are really voting for a prime minister. A prime minister is a king for 5 years when you put him there. He can do basically anything he likes.
Right.
So therefore, you're voting for the leader.
So
who do you think is better? So to me, the defining thing is, can Ralph persuade the people to continue what he thinks is important, what he's doing? Or can the NDP say, no, I've got a better leader with better ideas and better vision than Ralph can deliver to you?
And my final question, Jen, I'm going to straw poll you here. I'm going to do a straw poll with you because, and I know you're going to run. I know you're going to run.
You know I'm going to run. I'm going to run.
In your view,
yes,
then,
sir.
Stephen,
yes,
I'm straw polling you.
Yes, sir.
Is Ralph going to be able to convince the people that he's better, or is Adam going to be able to convince the people?
I think that it's not. I wish I had the answer, you know, but to me it's very simple here. You have a party, the ULP, that is on a downward trend. Popular vote, number of seats in the House, they are on a, for them to reverse that trend, so it's a very, very difficult thing to do. But of course, I did say the same thing in 2010, I was wrong. So to me, this is the NDP's election to lose. The fact that we even think it is close, in my view, says, you know what, guys, we need to evaluate what it is we are pushing and what agenda we are trying to hit and what we're going to do. Or do we need to come up with a different mechanism? But my NDP friends tell me it's not close. They're going to win by 1,000,000 miles. They're going to win 12 or 14 seats. I don't see it personally. I think it's going to be very close. I think it comes down to Central Leeward and North Leeward again. I don't see any of the other seats swinging big time. Of course, many of my friends in the various constituencies will disagree with me and say, no, well, I'm going to win. But I don't see it. I see it still close.
So
I see
James
it very
has
tight.
made the comment that you start out with 0 seats on election day.
I think he's wrong.
You have no seats on election day.
No, I think both parties start out with a solid 6 seats and we're arguing over 3 seats. But I could be very wrong.
Stephen Joachim, thank you very much for coming on Unrendered.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
This has been another edition of Unrendered. My guest has been Mr. Stephen Joachim, certainly not a stranger to the studios of IKTV. I'm Tony Regisford, and here's where I sign out. Do enjoy viewing the repeat programs of this edition and join us the next time on Unrendered Days.